Rob, ESPN, our former network, did what was an outstanding idea to do a college basketball bracket that would determine the greatest college basketball player of all time. And it was March Madness style. And at the end of the day, it came down to two players battling it out for the championship. And that was the great Michael Jordan and the great Larry Bird, right? Two all-time greats, top 10 players of all time. Jordan, the GOAT in most people's estimation. And Michael Jordan defeats Larry Bird in that poll. Now, these were fans, okay? Fan polls. We got to say that.
The entire vote was fans. It was all fans.
Yeah, that's what Rob G said.
Rob G,
that's
all
correct,
fans?
right? So it's all fans.
It was a fan vote, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
That's why it doesn't make any sense.
Look, you put it out there and you give the fans can do what they want, right? They're the fans. But a lot of all-time great players had big-time problems with the fan vote. Magic Johnson, he tweets out, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar / Lou Alcindor, which, of course, was Kareem's name in college, is decisively the undisputed GOAT of college basketball. During his 3 years at UCLA, he led the Bruins to an 88-2 record, won 3 national championships, was 3-time National College Player of the Year, and was 3-time NCAA Final Four Most Outstanding Player. Jay Bilas, we know Jay, of course, the college basketball analyst and commentator. He says ESPN's bracket of the 64 greatest players in college hoop history is great. But come on, Lou Alcindor is the greatest college player ever, all caps, period. No reasonable debate. To even suggest otherwise is foolish. And several other people were tweeting about this. And Rob, they're right on the money. I mean, it is clearly Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and after him, it's probably Bill Walton. Right. Michael Jordan, as I said, is the GOAT. I think he's the GOAT. You think he's the GOAT. I think most people think he's the GOAT. But I don't even think he's in the discussion for greatest college player of all time.
I think this is where the lines get blurred and people just think, well, Michael Jordan's the greatest NBA player that we saw, so he must have been the greatest college basketball player, right? I mean, it only makes sense. No. And it's not the case. It's not even close. I agree. You could probably name 5 people in the top 5, and Michael Jordan is not even in the top 5 because of other guys. And the same thing when you talk about, you might say Michael's the greatest in the NBA, but Chris, if you were to say who had the greatest basketball career, high school, college, and the NBA, it's Kareem. His high school was the same exact thing. They never lost. I'm just saying, what are people talking about when it comes to college basketball? It's an embarrassing list. And here's the worst part. Kareem lost early to Shaq in this poll. Early.
Which is absolutely
ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
If you want to say Shaq was a better NBA player, and that's arguable, I'd take Kareem, but there's an argument for Shaq.
Kareem's the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NBA. Come on.
Right.
I'm serious.
But like you said, if they want to argue Shaq on the NBA merits, fine. We can debate that. College isn't even debatable. Did Shaq win an NCAA championship?
No.
I don't even think he got close.
I don't remember that. I'm telling you, check it out.
I don't even know if he ever made the Final Four.
I don't remember his college career, him being that kind of player.
Well, when he entered
tournament.
college, remember, he was not viewed as the greatest big man entering LSU that year. It was Stanley Roberts. Remember Stanley Roberts?
I do.
He was supposed to be the real prize that they were getting at LSU as a recruit, and Shaq obviously outshined him. But then Shaq didn't become their best player. Shaq played with Chris Jackson, who became Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf.
Exactly. And he was a hell of a player.
He was the one scoring 29, 30 points a game.
Matter of fact,
and not
Chris,
Shaq.
I just saw a story not too long ago where they're going to retire his number, right, at LSU, Chris Jackson.
Chris Jackson?
Which is great, considering what he's been through. But he was a great player at LSU. So I thought that was a nice move. Yep.
He was fantastic. Yeah, and then the other, so it was Shaq, and Shaq made it to the Final Four. And again, as great as Shaq was, there's no way he's one of the greatest 4 college players of all time. And it's not all about wins, of course, in college. But I'm looking at Shaq playing for LSU. The first year he was there, they lost in the second round of the tournament. The next year they lost in the first round. And the next year they lost in the second round. So he didn't get near the Final Four. And Chris Jackson was outscoring him. How in the world is Shaq better than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor in college?
Because they never saw Kareem or Lou Alcindor. They never saw him, Chris. And this is where this is where the problem comes in when you try to look at different eras, is that people are blindly dismissing people that they didn't see. They're not interested. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, whatever, they could have tried to look him up in college and couldn't find him by his name.
How about a little research before you just wing it and decide who wins, you know?
Because that's not what it's about. They know Michael Jordan. They wear sneakers. Mike was some of them consider Mike. They know he's in that GOAT conversation. So if he was great in the pros, he had to be the greatest in college. How else? Even though Michael Jordan wasn't even the first overall pick in the NBA draft when he came out.
He wasn't even second.
He was third. Right, he was third.
Here's Shaq's freshman year at LSU, and I don't want to make this about Shaq, but Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, Chris Jackson back then, 28 points a game. Stanley Roberts, as I mentioned, was the second leading scorer. 14 points, 10 rebounds a game. Shaq was third at 14, but right below. Roberts was 14.1. Shaq was 13.9. And Shaq grabbed 12 rebounds a game. So Shaq knows. Shaq knows he shouldn't have beat Kareem in that vote. And so you had Shaq and Bird in the Final Four and Magic and Michael in the Final Four. And Rob, I got to be honest. I think Magic had a better college career than Michael.
I wouldn't disagree with that Michigan State team, and Greg Kelser was on that team.
Yes.
Yep.
Who was great in college,
Greg was great.
Didn't pan out to be a great NBA player.
But he was great in college.
Magic was with all these, superstars. He helped make Kelser. Obviously, remember the famous alley-oops they used to throw and all. He used to throw to Kelser.
And I'll be honest, too, with Larry Bird being going up against Jordan, obviously I remember that famous NCAA championship between Bird and Magic. I mean, that was one for the ages. I remember it vividly, and the build-up, it was huge. But again, I don't remember Larry. I know Larry Bird started at Indiana. Things didn't work out with Bobby Knight. I don't remember his college career. I remember that moment, Chris, but I don't remember the rest. I'd have to be refreshed, even on Larry Bird.
You're making a great point in that Bird shouldn't have been in the championship series, round either.
Can you help me? I'm not saying he wasn't a great player.
His numbers are out off the chain. All right, this is what you call, really getting into the nuances of the argument, which is what people should do before they cast a vote. But Bird's numbers are ridiculous: 30 points, 13 rebounds, almost 5 assists for his career at Indiana State. Okay, 53% shooting sounds great. Here's the deal, though. They only made the NCAA tournament his last year there, Rob.
No,
that's what you're talking about. That's why you don't remember.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't remember
the other years because they never got to the tournament.
That's what I'm saying.
And beyond that, he played at Indiana State.
Right.
They were in the Missouri Valley Conference.
And
so
what's
he
the
wasn't
competition?
Playing the best competition. That's right.
And remember, he started at Indiana. He was at Indiana with Bobby Knight. So had he done it in that setting at Indiana, it would be totally different. Do you know what I mean?
Then I think, first of all, they would have probably made, assuming he did the same thing, they would have made the tournament.
Right.
Because they had good records at Indiana State, but they were in the Missouri Valley. Unless you won the conference, you weren't getting in the big dance. And so you're right. Had he done that at Indiana, then we wouldn't be discussing this. But so it was just, look, a great idea by ESPN. And I guess you can't blame them if the fans voted this stuff, right?
Yeah, but it just tells you how it's a little off the wall. We do have some calls, Chris. People want to chime in on this. So let's kick it off with Danny in California. You're on the Dan Patrick Show with the Odd Couple on Fox Sports Radio.
You guys, I love you guys. You guys are awesome. I can't believe you're on this early in the morning.
We bringing a lot of energy for sunrise, right?
It's too funny. I'm going to get a little bit emotional real quick, okay? Lost my wife a year and a half ago, but then I ended up with like my therapist says, my love interest from Texas. And Chris, you say fans. Are you
fans?
Fans. He says fans. But let me tell you guys, I grew up with Lou Alcindor, and then Bill Walton, and I'm telling you, that was basketball. That was college basketball at its finest. Nobody even gets that. Nobody. Dick Enberg calling the games. Nobody will get that ever. I grew up. The games would come on like 10 o'clock or midnight, and they would play, and they won 90 straight. And with the coach, John Wooden. I mean,
yes.
Oh my goodness.
No, it was Danny, it was totally different. It was a different. College basketball was huge. You want to talk about college football? College basketball back then, that was its heyday.
It was bigger than the NBA.
It was bigger at that time, and you knew who the coaches were and the players. It was totally different. And I think people forget, out of sight, out of mind. They didn't see Lou Alcindor. They didn't see Bill Walton. They think of Bill Walton as some quirky television announcer.
Right.
No, he was a ball player.
He was a great player.
Yep.
And you remember
Thanks for the call,
too,
Danny.
You remember this too, Rob. There was a rule freshmen couldn't play varsity.
Right.
When Lou Alcindor entered college at UCLA. And UCLA's varsity team, when Lou Alcindor was a freshman, won the title, right? The freshman team used to pound them in practice because of Lou Alcindor. So think about that.
No, absolutely.
It was crazy. Some of the names. Go. I mean, Trae Young. I like Trae Young. I love him as an NBA player. Why is he even in the bracket?
He shouldn't be in the bracket.
Why was and Wayman Tisdale wasn't. Remember how great Wayman Tisdale was?
Wayman Tisdale was a great college player.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely. Hey, let's go to Kevin in Florida. You're on the Dan Patrick Show. It's the Odd Couple on Fox Sports Radio.
How y'all doing this morning?
Doing great.
Great, man. How are you?
Doing great, man. Just trying to make it through this stuff, you know?
No doubt.
Yeah, bro. Hang in there.
Absolutely. Hey, I don't know, man. I didn't really vote in the poll. I don't do a lot of these, fan-only type deals. But if Lenny Bias wasn't in the poll, then it's messed up completely. I mean, Lenny Bias might have been the greatest if we're talking strictly college basketball. I don't know who's better.
Chris, was he on the list? He had to be.
I don't think he was on the bracket. Rob G, check that out.
Len Bias was another one, right?
Look, I love Bias. I don't think he's in the conversation for greatest college player ever. I believe he played all 4 years, which back then wasn't that unusual. I think Jordan was better than Bias in college. Jordan won 2 National Players of the Year. Bias was great, though. He could have been in the bracket. No, he should have been on the bracket,
though.
Yeah,
that's all.
I don't think he should have won it.
All right, we can squeeze one more in. Let's do Jeff in Indiana. You're on the Dan Patrick Show. It's the Odd Couple on Fox Sports Radio.
Hey, yeah, I agree with the first caller, guys. It's good to have you guys in the daytime. I'm normally listening at night and making my comments, so I appreciate you fellas.
Thank you.
There's so much to jump on. So much to jump on, guys. Going just to the Shaquille O'Neal thing, I think it was the Elite Eight as far as he got when he got beat by IU that year. I think it was maybe his freshman or sophomore year before he declared. But going back to the best player in college, definitely Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I would go with Bill Walton, second line to that. Again, it's because they've put the time in besides the freshman year that they couldn't play to make them good players, and they won national championships. Take nothing away. You go to the next level, it's a totally different story, guys.
No,
I got
no
a lot
doubt
more
about
to
it.
add to
No
that, but
question.
I'll stop there. I appreciate you guys.
Yes, thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
it. Stay safe.